Ango Show is live Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern. In this clip, I talk about 2 new signings for TNA, one of them being from WWE. Don't miss out. Watch the entire thing and make sure you click that like button. In other news, TNA has a new signing. I kind of want to talk about that. TNA Wrestling has officially announced that Heather Reckless has signed with the promotion. Heather Reckless worked the TNA Impact tapings in June in Chicago. She competed against Ash by Elegance. She returned to the company for the tapings in Kentucky following TNA emergence. She said to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, she says that she wrestled for them twice. Her first match was with Giselle Shaw. This was like a year ago. They finally came back to Chicago a couple times. I went to Bound for Glory, but the show was packed. I had to wait for the next time, and I finally got an opportunity. She was approached to sign with the company shortly after her match at the Kentucky tapings. She said that she spoke to Gail Kim, and Gail Kim opened an office door and told her to come in, and she offered her a contract. I mean, that's pretty cool. For TNA, listen, I don't want to rant about this, but let's talk about TNA for a minute, okay? Let's talk about TNA. Let's talk about signings. Let's talk about the roster. I'm going to just show you TNA Wrestling. We're going to look at their roster together because there's something very interesting happening in the roster. So let's just show you. This is their women's division, my friends. They got Alicia Edwards, Ash by Elegance, Danny Luna, Gail Kim, and Gia Miller are not active competitors. Giselle Shaw just left the company. She was released. She requested her release. Jody Threat, Jordan Grace. Jordan Grace is rumored to have left. Killer Kelly just announced that she's pregnant. Her and Myron Reed are expecting a child, so she's no longer competing. Kylan King is out with an injury. They got Masha Slamovich. They got Spitfire. I mean, they got Sue Young and Tasha Steeles. They got Zaya Brookside. All great people, all great talent, but there's a lot of inactives in the women's division. Knockouts division, okay? The reality is there's a lot of inactives in this roster. One of the biggest strengths about TNA was their knockouts division. For the longest time, that was one of the things that people talked about all the time, which was their KO division. And we have gotten to a point, unfortunately, with this company where it's a little hit or miss right now. That is problematic. And listen, Heather Reckless is not a big prominent name. And that's okay. You don't need to have big prominent names. It doesn't need to happen all the time. You don't need to have big prominent names every single time by any means. Actually, I feel like that's one of TNA's biggest advantages is signing people that may have not been like necessarily known. But at the same time, I think it's important to acknowledge that TNA is slipping. Also, let's talk about this. Last night during TNA Impact, TNA showed a vignette for Xia Li, a former WWE superstar who was released. Now, we don't know if her name is going to be Xia Li. It's fair to say that it probably won't be. I believe the name that's being rumored going forward is Xia Zhao. Xia Zhao, I believe is how it's being pronounced. Which is good. But when we go back to this women's roster, and we take a look, there's a lot of inactives. It's lacking some star power. So that is something that we got to keep in mind. Heather Reckless is joining the company. Cool. Xia Li joining the company. Cool. But at the same time, too, it's important that we acknowledge that this KO division needs a little bit of work. You got Killer Kelly taking time off. Kylan King's not there. Nobody knows what's happening with Jordynne Grace. Giselle Shaw is gone. This is a company that is struggling a little bit with their KO division. Rosemary's in the company. She's doing some stuff with NXT, and that's cool. Steph DeLander signed. I love TNA, guys. I love TNA so much. I really do. I love TNA a lot, bro. But at the same time, it's important that we acknowledge that this company is struggling to attract bigger free agents. That's the bigger issue. MN drops a super chat for $1.99 and says WWE needs to send over unused wrestlers. That's what they have been doing. WWE has been doing that. They are helping TNA out a little bit. They have been helping out a little bit. We got Carmen Petrovich there. We got Ariana Grace there, and that's great. But we got 2 new signings in the women's division. None of them are game changers. None of them are big, valuable names. And that's exposing the problem that TNA has, which TNA is going to have a very hard time signing some of the bigger names. They lost Deonna Purrazzo. They lost out on the opportunity to get Camille Brick. There was no way in hell that Mercedes was going to sign with TNA. They need a big caliber name, bro. They need a big caliber name. And unfortunately, I don't think they're going to be able to attract a big name. There is also a little bit of a tease of Wendy Chu going to TNA, which is cool. But this is a company that has been long known to have the best women's division ever. If you know anything about TNA, you could talk, listen, we could talk about the Bischoff era. We could talk about Dixie Carter. We could talk about Billy Corgan era. There's so much we could discuss, but TNA has always been notorious for having a strong knockouts division. So that's where I have a little bit of an issue here, because it's clearly not the same company in that regard. And I do feel like when they lost Deonna Purrazzo, that hurt. If they lose, I mean, they're losing Giselle Shaw. That hurts. But if they lose Jordynne Grace, mark my words, that is going to be very, very problematic. That is going to be catastrophic for this company. It is. Their biggest strength is now starting to become one of their biggest weaknesses. And I don't like that for this company. I don't. I do not like that for this company at all. Love the fact that TNA is bringing in Xia Li. I love the fact that they're bringing in names. But these are not the strongest names that you could be bringing in. And maybe that's the risk of being a third company, the number 3. But you can't survive off WWE just sending you talent all the time. Don't forget that.